Today we are talking to Dr. Francine Arroyo, Assistant Professor of Biology. Francine, thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Okay, so my first question for you today is why did you sign up for the Discovery program and what was the experience like for you?
Yeah, so I'm an incoming new faculty actually for this year. I started in August of 2022. And so I was eager to learn as many tools for pedagogy, for improving my courses, and and anything that's related to software. I'm always excited to try because my background has a lot of computational research. And so I'm really happy to learn and excited to learn new tools. And so I like to also implement that type of knowledge to my students as well to get them to be able to feel comfortable and confident accessing new tools and helping them walk through it. And so did Discovery look like the perfect training for me to kind of learn myself and also help students.
So, as a new faculty member, did it seem like it was relevant and like doable, manageable, or was it overwhelming in managing that new faculty experience in addition to the development program?
Um, I think as a new faculty in general, everything's overwhelming. So,
Okay.
but it's nice to have had training or some sort of, um, you know, parts of it were formal where we learned new techniques by hand, but also some informal reflections and networking with other faculty in the university, not even just in my department, but abroad, and seeing how comfortable they are and where they're at. So that helped me coming in as a new faculty to see that, it's okay if I didn't know everything, and that people who've had more experience than I am are also learning new tools and don't have everything set and their lectures are perfect. And that was really really helpful for me to kind of help uh feel like I had a group of people that I could talk to about my issues, but also just helping with that transition. And so I felt like this was like probably the best course that incorporated a lot of techniques that I would like to learn from pedagogy to, not only computer software tools, but also, learning about equity for students and improving that. So I think as a big, broad picture, this was probably like the best course I could take as a new faculty.
Awesome. Great. So, one of the things that you did adopt or incorporate uh, that I think you learned about in the program was the eReserves uh, program through the library. Can you talk about what that was like and that implementation and working with the librarians?
Yeah. So I was kind of introduced to that when I first did my orientation training as a new faculty, but I didn't really understand how well it would work until probably in like December when we learned about when we were meeting with trying to make courses more equitable. And I met with, I'm forgetting her name, but
Abrahamson.
Ashley Abraham, yeah. And she brought that up when we were talking because I was letting her know about a class that I was setting up for spring, where all the papers were literature review papers. And so I was saying how what would be the best way for getting access, because a lot of these papers still have paywalls even if they're older, and allowing the students to access some not only literature but also book chapters that are available. And so she let me in with or let me know about eReserves and connected me with the people in the library to set that up. And that was a huge asset for me because, in my mind, I was thinking I was going to have to find each link, copy or download every PDF that I could find. And even I had issues accessing that. And so during this process, I learned a little bit more about the library as well. So I knew how to bypass the paywall eventually too, because the university has licenses. And so that helped me learn a little bit more about the accessibility through the university, but also to help the students learn. So I had implemented this eReserves in my Canvas page. So there's an add-on that you can click. So students don't even need to go directly to the website in the library. They can just go on their Canvas page, click the link, and they can access my course links through there. And so they had all the papers, and there's probably about 58 papers individual, and about 3 chapters from pretty old chapters, but really important chapters for the work that I was doing. And so that was a huge asset, and that saved me so much time just to find them all and set it up. And it was really easy to implement. I just let the eReserves person know, this is the list of what I would like, and this is the format I would like, and she set that all up for me, no problem. And so super helpful. And the students really learned about accessing the library too. And so that was also a nice add-on to the whole experience.
Yeah, that was going to be my question about the impact for students, but getting students using library resources, um, and learning how to find things and seeing what's available to them, I think is definitely helpful.
Absolutely, yeah. And my class has a mixture of grad students. So we have a master's in biology and also undergrads. So it was a combined course. And so that was really super helpful for the grad students, who some of them have even been here and didn't know about it.
Hmm,
It's in the library. And then of course the undergrads who are interested in learning about research, they realize that they can access a lot more than they knew. So it was super
that's
helpful.
that's great. And we've been trying to collaborate more with the librarians, and the librarians are so helpful. And was talking to William, one of the other instructional designers, and he was saying, I'll send the librarian a question, and within half an hour they'll send me 12 articles that they found. He's like, I don't know how they do it so fast, but they love
Yeah,
helping people and that sort of thing.
yeah, they
So
know all those resources. It's just hard. It's hard to think about, how many skills other people have. And I think you know, I think there's this future, what we would do in the future. I would also like to collaborate more with the library as far as getting students to learn more about using software to help with their reference citations. So
mhm.
there's things like EndNote, or there used to be Mendeley, and now there's a new a free version of these sort of bibliography type things that are super helpful for students to help when they're writing, that they don't have to manually write every single reference in their bibliography. They learn how to do in-text citations correctly. And I think the library could be a useful help for helping with that training too.
So you talked about software. One of the other things you talked about implementing this year was a new app or platform called Genius was one of the things, and then a couple other things that you were able to either get for free or that were open software for students. Can you talk about those things?
Yeah, so my course for this spring was it was called Symbiosis, Ecology, and Evolution. And so part of a lot of the analysis for understanding how organisms interact is looking at their phylogenies, or their trees, and seeing how their trees co-evolve with each other. And so one of the main activities that I had was a computer lab activity that had students get an unknown nucleotide sequence and then try to create phylogenies with these sequence. And so what I wanted was software that wasn't too cumbersome to learn, so that have a huge learning curve, because I didn't want them to get stuck on how do I use this program, and getting straight to let me learn the content of creating alignments and understanding what trees are, how trees are made, and and some biases that can come into play. And so I use this program called Genius, which is this by subscription. And so I happened to learn that they actually promote learning in classrooms. And so they provided me a license key for the class for free, so that every student can access this Genius license for the duration of the semester, and have it individually on their laptops. And so everybody was able to get it, access their own. And then using this program, it's a graphical interface. So really easy, click and point, file add on, and you can even have these beautiful visuals of alignments or sequences that are paired with different colors for every nucleotide, and then they can see which ones are aligned and which ones are different. And I had them work through that. And after the fact, I'm still getting comments from students now at near the end of the semester. We started this earlier, saying, this is the first time I actually finally learned how to do phylogenies. I understand now. And a lot of what they brought up was, they learned about how to do these in other programs that required a huge learning curve, using R or some other programming language, that just wasn't finicky, or they couldn't do everything in one package. They had to do one program and then learn a new program to do editing, and then a new program to do the tree, and then a new program to make it look pretty. And so this program does it all. And so they were really excited and about finally being able to understand what they were doing, because they could focus on the content rather than fighting the software.
Yeah, that's super important. And so, how much time do you have to spend teaching them how to use it versus, I mean, hopefully less than they were doing previously, but with something new, is that time that you spend in class, or is that something you prepare in advance?
This is something I did in class. I've learned with a lot of these, hands-on is the best way to go. And so I set aside special time and even a reserved rooms in the library that were good for people to bring in their laptops and to do more setup, to plug in and get ready to work on their projects, so that they could work together. And so I had about, I set aside 3 class periods to just work through it. And the first time I kind of showed them the steps. And then the next 2 times was them just troubleshooting, just working through it at different levels. And then people who learn quickly, I had them go around the room and help others who were struggling. And then we would collect as a class and talk about what were the areas that most people were struggling with, or what areas they still have questions about. And so that really got everyone up to speed. So the assumption was that nobody knew how to do any of this. So we're all starting from scratch together, and those who learn quickly can help. And that worked out really well. And then I set a month later a deadline to provide their phylogeny image, their final image, along with a little caption that describes what it is. And that was really successful. Everyone was able to do that in time. And so plenty of
So did
time.
you say,
So yeah, so in class time and then their own time to kind of complete the project.
but did you, so you, are you saying that you scheduled like a different space for the students to do this as opposed to your standard classroom?
Yeah. So the
Okay,
classroom I
yeah, that's
had was a
amazing.
little bit, yeah, it wasn't necessarily set up. It was more for lecture. So the tables were really short, and people were coming in, and some people have laptops that are huge, or like
Yeah,
gaming laptops.
yeah,
So I wanted to make sure that they had, and and you have issues with plugging in with, like, where do you plug in your laptop if it's low battery? So
yeah.
kind of giving everyone that equal footing of, this is a classroom that's made for accessing your laptop easily. And so that again, another overcome a barrier that students have, so that everyone's on the same page.
No,
And that
that's really smart. People don't always think about that sort of thing. So is the software that you are using for this project like a industry standard kind of software, or is it one that's more tailored for education?
I think their goal is for both.
Okay, okay,
um, and because it's subscription, I think it's labs, often research labs, the labs that I came from Ivy Leagues and really well-funded medical schools. It's really easy. It's common to have that subscription. But for schools like the CSUs, maybe a lot of, and I've been talking to a lot of PIs in my department. It's a bit much to have pay over $200 a year for a subscription for students, and depends on how many students. It's one
yeah.
per student, so it gets pretty expensive pretty quickly. So one of the things I'm trying to is least to get them, once they understand how to make trees, then if they need to use a free version later, they already know the steps, they know how to
Mhm.
analyze the data. And so now, we've crossed one hurdle, and then now later on, their next hurdle will be how to learn the software that my new PI or my program wants to use. That it's a little easier to get to, because at least now they have the science knowledge, and that's the important part.
Okay, so what's next for you? You've been through year one, you've been through discovery. Where are you planning to go from here?
Yeah, so I want to continue implementing things. So I knew one of the good rule of thumb is not to put too much new at once for students. And so
And for you too, right?
And for me too, yeah, because I was also developing a brand new class, a special topics class for spring, and so I was generating new activities. And so some of the activities, I would admit, were still tactile, print out a paper work, and in the classrooms that I had and the class size, that worked okay. But what I'd like to implement is using more of the Google Drive, Google Docs, more collaborative writing tools, and also ways for them to do some more visual activities. So for example, in class, I had them do a game called the Prisoner's Dilemma game, where they're essentially paired up with a student anonymously, and they're made to whether they're going to defect and let that person go to prison, or are they going to stay silent and not say anything, and then they corroborate with their partner. And so they had to do this kind of hidden. And so initially I did it with little pieces of paper, almost like a tally, and they put in like whether they're going to defect or stay collaborative, and then put it all up on the board. And so halfway through, I'm like, let's do this on Google Sheets, and I set up columns and had them each put in their, whether they defect or collaborate, and they gave them a unique number so they could stay anonymous, and how their pairings went. And that way they, in live, I said, okay, now put your votes in, and they would all sign on and type in their answers all at once. And so the reveal was always exciting for them, because they get to see like, oh, I know what I was going to do. What did my partner do? Oh no, I lost points. They gained points. What happened? And then after we set it all up, I looked at the end and then said, like, do you notice the trend? Everybody was kind of following the same strategy. And so we talked a lot about that. And so I think using more of those Google Drive and Google Sheets with live input helps move things a lot faster, and also gives them the data right away so they can analyze trends that happen during the course. And so I want to do more of those type of activities instead of more tactile. It takes me a lot longer to do.
Yeah, great. Francine, thank you so much for talking about your discovery experience.
Thank you.
To learn more, visit our website, academics.fresnostate.edu/ideas, or contact us to share your story, ideas@mail.fresnostate.edu.